Now, I'm joined by Professor Dominic Regan, who is a legal speaker, writer and broadcaster. He's advised senior judges and parliamentarians on court cost reforms, and he's the special advisor to the Association of Costs Lawyers. If I sue a mechanic who's done a shoddy job on my car, how long would it normally take before the case got to court? Dominic, good evening.
Good evening, Daniel. Hello there. Great question. Well, for small claims, which most of your listeners will be involved with, cases are up to £10,000. The theory is that from starting proceedings, I'll come back to that in a moment, to a hearing 30 weeks, but that target is woefully missed, and we could well be looking at a year or even slightly longer.
You say for small claims. Can you explain what you mean by that and what the other types of claims are?
Absolutely. I think most people have heard of the small claims court, which in fact is part of the county court. There is no separate thing as a small claims court. The idea is that cases worth up to £10,000, which for me is not a small claim in the real world, but small claims cases are dealt with in a very simplistic way and a cheap way. And the critical thing is that you pay a court fee, and you can find all of this online. Just Google small claims court. And the fee, for example, your scenario there of the dispute with the car mechanic, if that claim was worth between £1,500, £3,000, you pay a court fee of £115, which is not, in the scheme of things, a lot of money. And the great thing about small claims is that, I think it is great, is that we don't pay the other side's costs. So if we win, we bear our own costs, but if we lose, we don't pay their costs. So, because the nightmare, if you read any newspaper, any journal online, cases where people lose and they are hit for enormous amounts of money. Well, the beauty of small claims is that if your scenario there, dispute the mechanic, then the costs are very modest, as I've just explained. Now, you can incur some costs. In fact, your scenario there is brilliant because you'd need an expert, frankly, to come along and say, well, this is why this failed, because it could be that the car was just ancient and clapped out. So, and there is provision for the winner to get back up to £750 from the loser in terms of paying an expert's fee.
Thank you. Now, you mentioned claims up to £10,000 don't normally incur costs, or the loser doesn't pay the winner's costs. Is there an exception for cases involving injuries?
Yeah, there are lower limits for personal injury, and there are different limits for whether it's a vulnerable road user, so someone on a bicycle. So we talked about, there was, I think, £1,500, £2,000 there. For road traffic cases, £5,000. So a low small claims limit, you're absolutely right. But say the great bulk of claims, landlord and tenant, holiday maker, travel company, neighbour disputes, which I say, for goodness sake, don't go down that hole. That sort of territory is where most of these claims are pursued. And may I add, just because it is so important and massively overlooked, people, before even embarking on claims, should think about whether they might actually be eligible for free support. Now, legal aid has been scrapped by the government back in the late 1990s. But for example, if any of your listeners belongs to a trade union, a professional association, like teachers, some credit cards have legal cover attached, and so does house insurance. And the beauty of that is that body, obviously they'll only support you if they think it's a decent case, but they will fund it totally, and therefore you get a free ride.
If someone can't afford a lawyer, Professor Regan, or there is no insurance company backing you up or no union to back you up, should people be scared of going to court on their own? Is it intimidating?
No. And by the way, even if they haven't got that back, there is still the possibility of a Citizens Advice Bureau. That's another very useful avenue, just to get initial advice. They're not going to turn up and represent you. The honest to God answer is that judges have had tons of training because there are so many small claims, there are so many of these cases, and because you're not going to get costs if you win in these matters, as you rightly indicate, a lower limit for road accidents. But anything, because there's not going to be a cost recovery, lots and lots of people are indeed representing themselves litigants in person, and judges are trained to cope with that. So it is not that television representation of judges and hearings is utter tosh, dreadful stuff. No judge in this country wields a gavel, a little hammer. So they should not be put off. It's a modest affair. And judges, as I say, are trained to sort of help people along and get to the bottom of it.
And finally, is there an amount of money that's so small, do you think, that it's never going to be worth the time or the cost or the hassle to take it to court?
Well, there are. I mean, like you claim up to £300. I mean, the court fee is £35. Do you want to spend? And it causes worry. It causes anxiety. It causes stress. It's a value judgment for each and every individual. And some people, they just say, right, yeah, and I respect them, but it's hard work. And I think, you know what, you've got to get up in the morning. In a year's time, will I still be fretting about this? Is it going to be a big deal? So the answer is it's a personal judgment. But certainly once we're into the hundreds of pounds or 1,000, or, you've had a builder who's taken a deposit and legged it and gone away with a couple of £1,000, then, I would want to pursue them. I would, Daniel.
Professor Dominic Regan, thank you very much.